যদি সবাই ফিরে যায়, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায়, যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না যায়, তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে, তবে একলা চলো রে। যদি আলো না ধরে, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে, যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে, তবে বজ্রা নলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে, তবে একলা চলো রে। একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো রে।
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Today we are back discussing Sanjeev Sanyal again. We are going to discuss multiple videos by Sanjeev Sanyal, all of them pretty short in themselves. That's why we have picked two whole topics which require multiple videos. First, we are going to check out his idea of a Hinduism-based framework for liberalism, and then we will check out the stuff he did with the smart city project. I found them really fascinating as someone very skeptical and opposed to government expenditure on things, especially hand holding and stuff. So especially the Indore project really fascinated me. So they are on the Rajya Sabha TV YouTube channel. I hope they still are there. I'll have to search for them. I thought I'll just look at them after many years. The last time I checked them out was when it came out, on the days that it came out, because Sanjeev Sanyal did not have any significant online presence back then. He was just going to those literature festivals and getting called to, invited to speak here and there a little. So that's all the Sanjeev Sanyal related stuff we could find back then, not podcasts. So I was in a mood to let's say consume anything, any content related to Sanjeev Sanyal. So that's why I had watched them, and I found the Indore City project really fascinating. So first, let's check out what's up with this idea of Hinduism based liberal framework. Okay, Dinner has an interesting counter. Let's check that out even before we start looking at it. He's saying he found Sanjeev Sanyal's video lacking. There are many possible counters to it, especially on the flexibility of taking Shastras as authority. Okay, let's see. Let's see what his arguments are. Friedrich Neumann Foundation for, what was it called? Let's see what this institution is. Social change through public policy. Friedrich Neumann Foundation for Freedom, South Asia. Okay, so I guess a pretty libertarian leaning platform. Let's see who they are. Who are these guys? It's USAID funded. Are you joking, or is it actually USAID funded? I wondered if USAID would fund any libertarian leaning platform. All those are Heritage Foundation kind of right-wing leaning podcasts. Foundations. Education, social market, economy, open society, international politics, offices. एशिया में कहाँ कहाँ पे है? साउथ एशिया रीजनल ऑफिस. New Delhi is the only place it has. It has Dhaka as well. Guatemala, Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East. कितना बड़ा फाउंडेशन है भाई. The first thing we can do to help achieve unrestricted freedom is to try become free ourselves. As ये तो libertarian platform लग रहा है. Who is Theodor Heuss or Haas, who consciously wanted to establish a link to the Strasbourg Citizen School founded by Frederick Neumann in 1918, established our foundation and named it after Frederick Neumann. Okay. Um, any understanding of funding and stuff, values? Let's see values. So Hinduism as a framework for libertarianism here. Code of conduct of the okay. Rishi is saying Kushal and AIM said today that India won't put the US funded list or ask Trump because lots of right wing and BJP people are in the list. Yes, my hunch is it's the leftists in BJP because they would not take that tone with Sanjeev Sanyal. They're close friends with them, with especially Smita Badua and stuff. And Dhruv Sanyal is coming on. Dhruv Sanyal, right? Or who's the elder son? He's coming on Kushal Mehra's podcast all the time. They would not. They said it pretty harshly, pretty rudely, pretty angrily. I don't think they would have said it if it was Sanjeev Sanyal. Okay, let's continue with this idea of Hinduism as a liberal framework.
Hi, I'm Sanjeev Sanyal. I'm an economist and a writer, and today I'm going to talk about Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma as a liberal framework and how the two feed upon each other. Since this lecture is about Hinduism as a liberal framework, let me start by acknowledging that both liberalism and Hinduism are terms that mean many things to many people. They are fuzzy terms, and perhaps the best place to start is by explaining both of them. Now, let's take liberalism. Now, the term liberal has ended up being, in these days, being seen as being the left end of a right to left ideological spectrum. However, this has not always been the case and depends a lot upon the time and the context. So, for example, in Australia, the Liberal Party is the right-wing party. In Canada, the Liberal Party is the left-wing party. Similarly, the word conservative, which is very often used as the opposite of liberal, in, say, the UK, the conservative would be a right-wing person who probably believes in more conservative social structures, but on the other hand, they are also more likely to be believers in liberal economic policies. On the other hand, in China, a conservative would be probably a die-hard Maoist. So as you can see, these things mean many things depending on the context. Similarly, the same person can, depending on context, use the word liberal in a totally different way or have contradictory ideas. So a person who may be socially very liberal may be against economic liberalization. So, for example,
Right.
You had John Stuart Mill, who is the
Entire Congress basically socially liberal against economic liberalization. I'm socially liberal, economically right wing.
one of the founders of classical liberalism. But on the other hand, he used to work for the East India Company and made many disingenuous arguments for justifying British colonial rule in many parts of the world, including in India.
Oh, so Sanjeev Sanyal means that we must read people who have said some bad things, even maybe about our own people. Holy shit, how can that work really? Shouldn't we cancel them? Shouldn't we be the Taliban?
So, if one could argue that in that space he was an illiberal. You have a similar thing today as well. So you have people who would call themselves liberal, probably feminists, but then would go on to justify triple talaq, say in the Indian context, or make arguments for, say, a hijab in a Western context. So
SDIND, we are joking about who is USAID funded. Don't get serious now and start saying things that are actually believable. And yeah, Srijan, I saw your last comment on the previous live stream, the one you made after the outro music started. You make comments like that on our live stream one or two times, and we will stop taking you seriously. बाकी लोग तो तुम्हें गाली देते रहेंगे. But yeah, I like to engage with the comment section. But if comments are such whose response can only be maa behan ki gali, then I can't engage with them, right? So if you want to have a fruitful conversation with us, with me at least, then keep those thoughts to yourself.
Clearly, liberalism as a term is a catch-all for many different things. So for the purposes of this lecture, I'm going to define liberalism in the following way. First of all, liberalism must include in it the idea of pluralism, i.e. that the world can have different ways of looking. Some of these ways of looking may be contradictory, but liberalism allows for a broad umbrella of these ideas. The second constituent of liberalism, at least for the purposes of this lecture,
so these three are the premises on which he's basing liberalism. So then I guess we'll have to compare it with Hinduism, whether these three apply to Hinduism as well or not. This is a fun way to do it.
Must be that there is a general acceptance for openness and a preference for openness and liberty. So when in doubt, you will opt for a liberty and openness as being your default option. The third element of liberalism would be a sense of skepticism and openness to evolution of ideas, i.e. not being entirely certain about what the truth is. And this comes through in many places in liberal writings. One of the best known liberals of modern times, of course, is Friedrich Hayek, the economist and Nobel laureate. And there are some great ideas that you can pick up from.
Okay, this is a hilarious coincidence. We posted something related to Hayek today only on our community tab.
One of his best books is this one, The
Road to Serfdom,
which is, of course, perhaps his most famous book. But if you want a short introduction to his ideas, perhaps you should read his Nobel acceptance speech, which is called The Pretense of Knowledge. As you can see, the very term, the heading itself tells you that he was ultimately in favor of allowing for different ways of thinking about the world, and particularly allowing for skepticism. So I think these are the three elements that must be part of any true liberal view of the world.
And Friedrich Hayek said in his Nobel acceptance speech that economists have a disease, the disease of thinking that they know everything and therefore predict things all the time and think the government should run according to their predictions, etc. Let's take Lasher's question here. Why does one part of Indian right wing wants to be a cheap version of Taliban? Two reasons, I think. The second, I think, which is, I guess, 40% of the issue, that is कि all corrections are over corrections. एक ये तो बात है ही कि भाई आज तक सब कोई कॉमीज हर वक्त सबको सब जगह कैंसिल करते फिर रहे थे. अचानक अगर हमारे पास थोड़ा पावर आया है तो why shouldn't we cancel some people as well? That always happens in society. What you are saying in USA against Indians, etc. So it's more often than not, it's a misdirected anger, comes out as overcorrection for some other problem. The second part is that after all, we are a poor country with lack of disposable income. You don't have the luxury to sit back and think on stuff. Generation after generation, for about 800, 900 years, we have barely survived, faced only violence, and only managed subsistence. So if your entire life for generations of your ancestors and yourself has gone by just being born from the day you are born your parents are pushing towards getting some government job or ranking in class, becoming an engineer, get a job somehow or the other, run for interviews. Then you face ragging in college, get a job, get abuses by hurled at you by your bosses, then immediately the pressure of marriage, then the pressure to have babies, and you are done at 60 70. You learn a few shlokas of Gita, your Hindu life is complete. So with that, there's no real time for any critical thinking, so or even saying things, because our laws have been opposed to thinking and speaking forever, since independence. So when were these thoughts and evolved ideas going to come into the Indian head? So it's a problem of poverty in the first place, because I bet you that every country which has a GDP per capita of $2,500 would behave the same way to such things. So now, yes, you can bring purchase power and stuff. Okay, but still, for how many really, and what quality of products, those are in question as well. And a lifetime of corruption. You have only been at cutthroat desperation to get out of poverty and handle corruption. That's been our lives entirely. So, uh, so we don't know what are the. Okay, let's not be self-deprecating. I know these things. A lot of you all know these things, but most Indians don't know what are the implications of controlling speech and control thought. They don't know the side effects, and they don't know the upside to these things, that what happens when you don't control speech and don't control thought. They don't know that this is how greater arguments, greater ideas for each and every field come about. Unless you don't have those things, good ideas don't come about, innovation doesn't happen.
Now we come to Hinduism, or Sanatan Dharma, if you prefer that term. Here again, Hinduism is a fuzzier concept than many others say Abrahamic.
I didn't pick Ben Shapiro because he is my favorite libertarian. I picked Ben Shapiro's debate because that was a fascinating debate between Cenk and Ben Shapiro.
Religions may be, and it contains within it many beliefs and faiths, etc. But Hinduism as a whole is not a belief or faith. So this leads to a lot of confusion, and you'll have, for example, many people will come and say Hinduism is not a religion, but it's a way of life. I'm afraid using the term way of life leaves me no wiser than before. So I would much rather say that Hinduism is in fact a religion, except it is very different from an Abrahamic religion. Why would I say so? Because Hinduism does contain within itself many of the elements of a religion. For example, it thinks about a person and his place in the universe. It thinks about ethics. It has within it rituals and traditions and festivals. All of these things are parts of every religion, and Hinduism too has it. What Hinduism, however, does is somewhat differently from other religions is that it is not synonymous with a particular faith or belief. So when you go to an Abrahamic religion, for example, it is synonymous with having a particular faith or belief. So if you are a Christian, then you must believe that there is one God and that Jesus Christ is his son and that he sacrificed himself for the benefit of humanity on a cross. Now, if you don't believe this set of axioms, then you cannot be a Christian. Similarly, in Islam, you must believe that there is one God and that Muhammad is his chosen and last prophet. Now, if you do not believe this, it's difficult to call yourself a Muslim. Now,
Yes, and which is why the day Islam reaches 20% population in US, you are going to see some fun reactions and actions and shenanigans between the black community and Muslims, because black people have a religion called Nation of Islam, which has a prophet of its own, a mysterious guy whom no one really knows where he came from, which is why many black people have Muslim names, Jamal, etc. Jamal, Rashid.
There is no starting axiom in Hinduism. So this is the reason it is fundamentally different in Hinduism, a Muslim. Now, there is no starting axiom in Hinduism. This is the reason it is fundamentally different. In Hinduism,
Let's take the trad argument here. How many of you all agree that there is no starting axiom in Hinduism? Um I mean, uh, are the non-negotiables, grammatically speaking, starting axioms? Because if so, then maybe eating beef or Brahman hatya, Go hatya, etc. I've heard even Dharmaninda is a starting axiom, or at least a non-negotiable. Let's see some opinions. ऋषभ is saying प्रधानमंत्री लाडली यूट्यूबर योजना के अंडर सीधे आपके अकाउंट में डिपॉजिट खटाखट. Thank you for contributing this amount to Bengal's GDP, Rishabh. Again, see, Gujus, Marwadis running West Bengal. They are trying to take over your say on my channel. I'm going to read his channel because he's donating money. So Bengalis, compete harder, and buy me out even further.
you can be a polytheist, you can be a monotheist, you can be a monoist, you can be an atheist even, because there are actually many well-known traditions within Hinduism of atheism and well-established ones. And you can have any combination thereof or a completely new belief if you so wish. So in that sense, while Hinduism has many specific beliefs within it, Hinduism as a whole is not a specific belief. So what brings unity to Hinduism? The unity of Hinduism is brought together by not the answers it gives, by the questions it asks, by the processes of inquiry and searching that it puts together, by the idioms that many of its texts bring together in order to allow for a framework of conversation. Hinduism comes together because of various festivals that are shared, various rituals that are shared. So in that sense, Hinduism is indeed a religion. But like liberalism, it allows for many of the elements of plurality. It allows for skepticism. It allows for preference for liberty and openness. Now, in order to understand Hinduism as a liberal system, you need to understand how the architecture of Hinduism is set up. Now, all the texts of Hinduism, and there are many, and by the way, you can keep adding to them, by the way, there's no end to the number of new texts that you can create.
This is sort of my counter to what Niner was bringing up in the beginning. Okay, he was saying that many counters can come about to the argument of flexibility of taking shastras as authority, that whether shastras should be taken as authority or not, because texts always kept happening. But I guess the counter argument to my argument would be that who writes the shastras? Anyone writes any random thing, that's not a shastra, right? Maybe evolving commentaries of shastras, because commentaries always happened, and commentaries themselves are not shastras really. I guess the difference between Shruti and Shruti. No, even that's wrong, I think. But anyway, now if people in the yesteryears found communism in Hinduism, some people found socialism in Hinduism, Gandhi found socialism in Hinduism, some people found non-violence in Hinduism, some people found violence in Hinduism. So why shouldn't we find libertarianism economically, or what he's saying is basically libertarianism even, so liberalism in Hinduism?
However, all the texts are divided into two groups, Shruti and Smriti. Shruti means that which is divinely inspired or heard, and Smriti means that which is remembered, i.e. the great thoughts. Now, the Shruti texts are the only truly canonical texts of Hinduism, and it includes, strictly speaking, only the first three Vedas, the Rig, the Sam, and the Yajur. Not even, strictly speaking, the Atharva Veda. And the Smriti, on the other hand, includes every other text that there is. Now, what is interesting about the Smriti text?
I agree with Rishi here 100%, because if you are doing a specific achara, a specific yagya, a specific ritual, it's because you believe the ritual. There there is no reason for you to screw with the shastras dictating a particular kind of achara unless you are just trying to fuck with it for no reason. If you don't believe the achara, then don't do it, and therefore don't follow the shastras for that. If you do want to get into a particular ritual, let's say even marriage and stuff, then why won't you follow the shastra? Who's forcing you to follow rituals, really? Here I agree with Rishi 100%. There was an interesting comment from Relax as well. Hindutva has no authority over religious scriptures. It's not profound with reference to theological aspects, and that's the good part about it. It's not a challenge to Brahmin regulation. I think fair enough, especially in the religious field, because I'm taking into account Brahmins to mean status groups as well in that sense as well.
Text is, and this, by the way, includes even the Bhagavad Gita, which is so sacred to Hinduism. Even the Bhagavad Gita is a Smriti text and consequently not a canonical text. It is possible to be a Hindu and not believe in the ideas of the Bhagavad Gita, but in some other texts. And in fact, there are sects that would not take Bhagavad Gita as being, for example, the Shakta tradition would consider the Bhagavad Gita as holy, but would not consider it as a central text. And there are others as well who would do so. That doesn't matter to Hinduism because this is a Smriti text. And this is
M. Shastri ko dukh ho raha hai. The anti-libertarian socialist guy who thinks Bihar is anarcho-capitalist. But to be fair, to me, I did watch it a month ago. I'm rewatching it with people. And of course, I forgot most of it.
For all the texts, like the Manusmriti, many people get very worked text, and there are others as well who will do so. That doesn't matter to Hinduism because this is a Smriti text, and this is true for all the texts, like the Manusmriti. Many people get very worked about the Manusmriti and the ideas within it. Well, my point is, if you don't like it, please write another one. It is not a canonical text at all. So, what is written then?
And of course, in terms of in the context of Manusmriti specifically, I have to use my sort of default sociological temperament wala brain into looking at Manusmriti. Okay, yes, this had a specific intention. It was and even that intention did not fall from the sky. That intention was a result of what society was doing and sort of codifying it into a book and saying this must be done. And then the insane amounts of later interpolations, which are absolutely mind-boggling contradictions in the Manusmriti. Oh my God. That makes the Manusmriti an impossible text to follow rigorously for anybody inside Hinduism from any jati, any varna. No one can.
In the Shruti texts. The Shruti texts then are basically the underlying operating system of Hinduism. So since many of you will own a smartphone, the best way to think about it is to think about it in the following way. The Shruti texts are the operating system of Hinduism.
Yeah, M. Shastri, that's what I was wondering in the beginning when we were going through the organization itself, because these days we have to be a little careful about who is a USA ID funded stuff or not. But this seemed to be a very libertarian platform, very free, because their main motto is freedom. So I guess they are that kind of a group, not the social justice kind of group. They lent Modi government a lot of support with. Oh, I see. And yes, M. Shastri is saying he's not socialist, but he just hates the fact that Professor Tantri is opposing building of airports in villages.
And the Smriti texts are the apps. You can add an app. Some apps are more used than others. If you don't like a particular app, you can delete it. You can write your own app and so on. So this is how Hinduism is set up, which allows for a huge amount of plurality. If you don't like a particular app,
yeah, this is a good analogy.
The Shruti, if you don't like it, please write another one. It is not a canonical text at all. So what is written then in the Shruti?
Is it fair to say that the Manusmriti is a canonical text for specifically Smartas?
Shruti texts. The Shruti texts then are basically the underlying operating system of Hinduism. So since many of you will own a smartphone, the best way to think about it is to think about it in the following way. The Shruti texts are the operating system of Hinduism, and the Smriti texts are the apps. You can add an app. Some apps are more used than others. If you don't like a particular app, you can delete it. You can write your own app and so on. So this is
But have a smartphone at least. That's the Savarkar idea.
how Hinduism is set up, which allows for a huge amount of plurality of ideas while maintaining some sort of a internal coherence. Now, what I'm going to do is to give you a sense of the kinds of interesting things that the Shruti texts then do in order to provide this operating system. And here I'm going to
Imshastri, you were saying that Sanjeev Sanyal is in fact right that Manusmriti is therefore not canonical for any Hindu and no Sampradaya even.
start with what is called the Nasadya Suktam or the creation hymn. This is one of the most important starting foundational chants or hymns of Hinduism. So I'm going to read out a translation. I'm not going to do the whole one for time reasons, but just to give you a flavor of what this Nasadya Suktam or creation hymn says. And it talks about what was there in the very beginning of creation. So this is what it says. The very first part of the hymn goes as follows. Then there was nothing, neither air nor the heaven above. What covered it? Where was it? In whose keeping? Was there then the cosmic ocean, deep and unfathomable? Then there was neither death nor immortality, neither night nor day. So this is the description it has of what was there in the very beginning. Basically, utter nothingness. In fact, so nothing that even the term nothing itself did not exist. And then it goes on like...
Guys, I just decided something. We were going to discuss this video and then look at Sanjeev Sanyal's videos on the smart city projects, right? This quote from the Rig Veda reminds me, the Nasadya Suktam reminds me, I think we will take a look at another video, which is sort of a very fascinatingly made video, has beautiful background score. Will probably get a copyright because of the background score, but I'll just edit it out later on if I do get a the music copyright. So the video was edited with footages from different films and some insane graphics, visuals and stuff to predict what will be the future of the universe. And in the background, there's the music and as well as different audio clips of different physicists, astrophysicists, scientists, etc. Sections from their podcasts, sections from their audiobooks, etc. And describing how the universe might end. And that kind of describes this situation that the Nasadya Suktam just described. We'll check that out.
This and keeps talking about the negation. This in the beginning there was literally nothing, and then after iterating this point several times, and then comes to the last part of the Suktam, where it then says this: who knows and who can say from where it all came, how the universe came into being? Do the gods know? But they too came afterwards. Who then knows? He, the origin of creation, who perhaps created the world, the great creator who controls the world, surely he knows, or perhaps he too knows not.
Perhaps.
Now this is an incredible piece.
And ye jo perhaps bola hai bhai, please let's get down to brass tacks. Boiling things down. When all things set aside, ये जो छोटा सा एक perhaps बोला गया है, that is the most fundamental reason for the progress of Hindus. This is the reason why Hindus who are devoutly religious are genius scientists as well. This perhaps, like the great Nietzsche said, the obsession with absolutism is a sign of a diseased mind, is a sign of pathology. The love of irony is a sign of a healthy mind. This perhaps. What if it is not? What if I'm wrong? So this question of perhaps and this idea of perhaps and this idea of I might be wrong. that sets you on a different kind of path to seeking getting better and realizing things that doesn't happen with most people. We are mostly today Talibanish, etc., as we were discussing a few minutes back. That's because most Hindus today are not really Hindus. They are basically Christians with Sanskrit words. So this is the reason. uh, what if something else might also be the case? The not the obsession with, okay, I came up with the answer, bro, even though I'm writing something in 3000 4000 BC, sitting meditating on the banks of a river. The things I know, I decided right now, are the end of the search for truth for mankind, and everyone must follow it. That did not happen. This perhaps is everything to us, to me at least. This is why we seek and seek, and the way we seek helps our society, helps our culture.
Piece of surely he knows, or perhaps he too knows not. Now, this is an incredible piece.
Yeah, Rishabh reminds me. So I think we must move on from the Aryan invasion theory or Aryan out of India theory or the Aryan migration theory. The real proof we have is of something called, I think, which should be called HMT, Haryana migration theory. People from the Saraswati Sindhu civilization, even if Harappa dried up, but even if it was Nordic people, the hardcore proof we have is of a group in the Haryana region, the Rakhigarhi region, who then came to the other lands, south of India, east part of India, Cambodia, etc., and spread their ideas, amalgamated, absorbed counter ideas, and sew a thread and sew a cloth together to create shit. Yeah, to sew together a cloth, a complete cloth called a country of Hinduism. Wait, what's happening to my Wi-Fi? Oh, it's back. Let's continue now.
Perhaps he too knows not. Now, this is an incredible piece of intellectual frame. This is an incredible piece of intellectual framework, and notice how fundamentally it is different from most other religions or ideologies. I mean, quite apart from, of course, I just mentioned about the Abrahamic religions, but let's take even Marx, for example. Marxism's basic thesis is that there is one way to think about the world, which is based on a certain dialectic materialism, which dominates the way history flows. Notice Nasadiya Suktam would laugh at such a unidimensional view of the world. Now, what happens then is that this then sets in motion lines of thought, which mean that you can add various ways of thinking. And again, it's important here to understand a little bit about the history of how the Vedas, particularly the Rig Veda, came to be compiled and composed. So the Rig Veda is written in a very ancient form of Sanskrit, Vedic Sanskrit. In fact, it is so ancient that you can be a complete expert in classical Sanskrit and have great difficulty in understanding the Vedic texts. Anyway, this is a Bronze Age text, and it came to be compiled under the rule of a tribe called the Bharatas or the Tritsus. They were a small tribe who occupied what is broadly now the modern state of Haryana. And we are told that this tribe, led by a king called Sudasa and his guru, Vashishta, went and defeated a coalition of 10 tribes which were attacking them from the west through Punjab, from western Punjab. And that there was a great battle on the banks of the Ravi, on which the Bharatas defeated the 10 tribes. Then Sudas turned around and defeated a bunch of tribes near the Yamuna. Some of them probably led by a chieftain called Bheda. Now, having done that, what happened is that the Bharatas effectively created the first known empire of India. But then they did something very, very unique. You see, when a tribe defeated other tribes, and it's the common thing to do would be that you would claim that your gods were more superior to the others' gods, and they would impose your ideas on the others. The Bharatas, however, did something very, very different. Instead of imposing their gods, they instead called in all the defeated tribes that they had, and perhaps even those that they hadn't defeated and had been in contact with, and essentially asked all of their sages and rishis and thinkers to come together. And they compiled the Rig Veda as a compilation of all the ideas of all these people. So basically, what they did, they compiled the best ideas of their time. This is somewhere in the
Look up, we are sorry to discourage you, but I don't think the mammoth thing that you are trying to do, I don't think it's possible outside institutional support. You have to become a researcher fellow in places like Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, because see, Bharatiya history from primary sources means just reading Ramayana, Mahabharata and Puranas, right? There are countless translations. You want to get to the Sanskrit parts only. Even they have, even the Sanskrit versions are countless in number, which is why there's something called the critical edition, which is even debunked by some other Oriental Research Institute. So even if you at least start with reading everything and then making up your own mind, I think you must become a fellow or something, or a sort of research undergrad in those kinds of institutions. Otherwise, this can't be done. You will be reading someone else's propaganda over other.
Bronze Age. Now, it is important. Asked all of their sages and rishis and thinkers to come together, and they compiled the Rig Veda as a compilation of all the ideas of all these people. So basically, what they did, they compiled the best ideas of their time. This is somewhere in the Bronze Age. Now, it is important here to notice that, therefore, by doing so, they brought together a lot of the knowledge that already existed. So this is important. The Rig Veda is not the beginning of a certain civilization. It is the culmination of already existing civilization. And this point, although it is very explicit in the Rig Veda itself, is oddly not brought out by many people. So I'm going to now read the very first shlok of the Rig Veda.
Why? Look at the context. Let's zoom out for a moment. It's the economic advisor to the prime minister of the biggest democracy in the history of mankind, going around bringing out random quotes from a 4,000, 5,000-year-old text. What is going on in India today? This is not the India I grew up in.
I got here a standard version of the Rig Veda translation. It's called the Hymns of the Rig Veda by Ralph Griffith. There are many other translations. I have used this deliberately here in case you were thinking that I was making some very special translations. I've used them.
He means he doesn't want to get the tag of RSS Kadalla and use RSS approved translations or something. But it's the white man's translation. Even then, we come up with great nice stuff.
A 19th century British translation, so that nobody accuses.
Okay, Srijan is finally saying something interesting. Yes, he's saying, isn't every primary source just propaganda as those were written down by King's favorite historian? It absolutely is. I don't know if I'm constructing my question well. Yes, it absolutely is. So there's no knowing what exactly happened. You will just get a rough idea of the situation by reading countless sources and countless Mahabharatas and countless Ramayans. So for those reasons, you have to become a fellow in those institutes.
I was making some very special translations. I've used them, a 19th century British translation, so that nobody accuses me of making some outrageous interpretations. Now, the very first shloka of the Rig Veda is a hymn to Agni, and it is a hymn many people read without really understanding its purport. Why is this, of all the other hymns, the very first hymn? Because it starts by saying something quite interesting. We laud Agni, our chosen priest for the sacrifice, he who lavishes prosperity, Agni, the worthy one, who is praised by both the ancient and the modern sages. Now, remember, they are essentially starting by mentioning clearly that this compilation.
Yeah, I remember the first line. Om Agnimile Purohitang Yagyasya Devamrityajam.
Remembers not
Devamrityajam.
just the modern sages of that time, i.e., of that Bronze Age, but also the ancient sages. Even at that time, they are starting by saying that we remember that these ideas came from some even more ancient period. So, this is a very important point because they are effectively not wiping the slate clean, but bringing together ideas that they themselves claim are already
It's
in
not a reset.
existence. Now, this point about bringing together different ideas of pluralism is again repeated in the very last suktam of the Rig Veda. And I'm going to read it here again. This is again, starts with two Agni, but then it makes a very interesting point. Thou, mighty Agni, gatherest up all that is precious for thy friend. Bring us all treasures as thou art enkindled in libation's place. Assemble, speak together, let your minds all be of one accord. As the ancient gods all sat down in their appointed share around the sacrificial fire, the place is common, common is the assembly, common the mind, so be their thoughts united. A common purpose do I lay before you and worship you with your general oblation. One and the same be your resolve, and be your mind of one accord. United be the thoughts of all, that all may happily agree. Again, you can see that this document is explicitly saying this, repeated in the very last suktam of the Rig Veda, that this is about bringing together various ideas, that all the ancient gods have a place around the sacrificial fire. It's not just the gods of the Bharatas. And this is again comes across throughout the book very, very clearly. Vishwamitra is a very important rishi, and many of his compositions, including the Gayatri Mantra, are important part of the Rig Veda. But remember, Vishwamitra was not the rishi of the winning side. He was the rishi of the 10 tribes that were defeated.
Rishi Vashishta was on the winning side, and the very first suktam is, I think, attributed to Madhuchanda, Vishwamitra Putra Madhuchanda.
And yet his ideas are here. So this is a model, a framework of accretion, of absorption, not of imposition. And then Hinduism then grows, therefore, through accretion as it expands.
When did Dark Prince, when did you start speaking like this? Are you a different Dark Prince? You are an old viewer of mine. You did not used to speak like this. I'm putting John Locke there because we're talking about liberalism here, and putting him in contrast to how we understand liberalism, especially if we base it on Hinduism. That's the point of a thumbnail.
Of absorption, not of imposition. And then Hinduism then grows, therefore, through accretion. As it expands, it then takes on new ideas that were already in existence. So many often those who do not know much about this particular history of the Rig Veda, they will say that Indra and Agni, etc., were ancient Vedic gods that were worshipped then, and that Vishnu and Shiva, etc., are later gods. Totally wrong view of the world. There's more than adequate evidence that all these other gods, whether it's Durga and the Devi tradition, which is also mentioned, by the way, in the Rig Veda, and the Shaivite thoughts, etc., or even gods that are not mentioned in the Rig Veda. These gods did exist in various parts of the country.
Yes. Hence, Haryana migration theory, okay?
Through this operating system, they came to inhabit this rather broad system that we now know as Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. Now, what I'm going to then say is that...
And saying perhaps, what can be more Sanatan, what can be more eternal than the idea that perhaps I'm right, perhaps I might be wrong.
Okay, so we have here Hinduism, a very liberal framework, and it allows for all kinds of new ideas, it allows for evolution, but does that mean that consequently it allows you to bring anything and everything into it? And this is an important point, because you see that which is open to everything is then consequently nothing. because it then doesn't mean anything specific at all. And this is, by the way,
look up here, history of the last 1200 years, उसके लिए तो संस्कृत में जाने का जरूरत है भी नहीं. उसके लिए तो हमारे जदुनाथ सरकार, आरसी मजुमदार, राधा कुमुद मुखर्जी है ही.
well-known problem. It's called the paradox of liberalism or the paradox of tolerance. And Karl Popper, who is, in my view at least,
Yeah, we don't tolerate the intolerant. We're not supposed to. That is ahimsa. Ahimsa is the prevention of violence.
the best liberal thinkers of the 20th century, brings up this issue of the paradox of tolerance. And those of you interested should definitely read this book by Karl Popper. It's called The Open Society and Its Enemies. It comes in 2 volumes, and I would strongly urge you to have a look at this. So I'm going to now read some of what he means by the business of the paradox of tolerance. So he says, Karl Popper says, less well known is the paradox of tolerance. Unlimited tolerance must lead to the disappearance of tolerance. If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if we are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of the intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed and tolerance with them. Then he goes on later to say, we should therefore claim, in the name of tolerance, the right not to tolerate the intolerant. So this is important because basically what he's saying is that liberalism, tolerance, pluralism, etc. cannot be so tolerant that it incorporates and allows the expansion of ideas that will destroy tolerance itself. So this is a very important thing, because then comes the question about Hinduism. Since Hinduism allows for many thoughts, is blasphemy possible in Hinduism? And I would argue there is only one true blasphemy that is allowed in Hinduism, and that is this, that we cannot allow for, or Hinduism cannot allow for, ideas that are completely monolithic and do not allow for other views of things. This is an important part of what Hinduism must protect, because if it does not protect the idea of pluralism or different ways of thinking, then it cannot protect itself against monolithic ideologies. And this is something, by the way, that is reiterated very strongly in later ideas of Hinduism as well. So, for example, you have here the story of Sati and Daksha. As you know, Sati was married to Lord Shiva, and her father, Daksha, decided to have a great yajna, or fire sacrifice. And he invited all the gods, and he invited all the sages, and this great fire sacrifice was held in which the only person who was not invited to it was Shiva himself. This was because Daksha held that his dear daughter had married somebody that he didn't quite approve of. So as a result, he didn't call Lord Shiva. Now notice that in not calling Lord Shiva to this great fire, he was violating the Samana Suktam, or the last Suktam of the Rig Veda, which says all the gods have a place around the sacrificial fire.
So far, what Sanjeev Sanyal said, none of that has any contradiction with libertarianism. How is libertarianism then a white man's ideology? Why isn't libertarianism Sanatan?
And of course, when Sati, uninvited, turned up at the venue, she saw that all the gods had been invited except her husband Shiva. So she was so deeply affected by this that she sacrificed herself into the sacrificial fire. And when Shiva heard of this, he picked up her body and began the dance of destruction. And the gods all became panicked that this would destroy the world. And so Vishnu sliced up Sati's body and scattered the pieces of her body all over the Indian subcontinent. Now, notice what has happened as a result of this. Essentially, the point being made here is the following: that not allowing Shiva violated the Shruti text, the Rig Veda itself, by not giving him his appointed place around the fire. Sati sacrificed herself in order to defend this point. And then, through the cutting up and scattering of her body, she then, across the subcontinent, the scattering of this body then again unites all of India. So if you look at a map of India, you will see that there are Shakti Pithas all across India where pieces of her body had fell, and they're all over. So the westernmost point of this is Balochistan, the Hinglaj Devi temple, and the easternmost is in Tripura in the northeast, but there are several others in the northeast as well. And then there is the one in Kashmir, but then the southernmost one is in Kanyakumari, and there's one in Jaffna as well. So you can see that in shattering herself, she then also ended up uniting a certain sacred geography. Many of the ideas that are discussed in this lecture, particularly one about how to think about the architecture of Hinduism, are there in my book. It's called India and the Age of Ideas. You can see the first section of this book. It does talk explicitly about how Hinduism functions as a complex adaptive system, and you will see that it's directly related to the idea of a liberal, plural, organic, evolving system. So please do pick up a copy and have a look at it. And then finally,
What the fuck are you talking about? Holy shit. What happened? Did you get into an accident in the last 2-3 years? Or in the last 2 years? You did not used to speak like this unless that was a different Dark Prince account. Is Dark Prince a common name for YouTube handles? Same old Hindu rate of growth arguments that have been debunked. Hindus are not responsible for your Western socialism crimes. How is Western socialism crimes my crimes, you dumb fuck? Libertarianism is an American version of the same. Libertarianism is an American version of Western socialism. Do you not understand economics or English grammar? Which one is your weakness? Or did some brains fall off when you got into a bike accident?
There is an interesting book which I think would be quite interesting to those who care about this idea of whether or not tolerant systems should tolerate intolerance. I mentioned earlier, of course, reading Karl Popper, but those who prefer a historical narrative of what can happen may want to pick up this book by Catherine Nixie. It's called The Darkening Age. It's a history about the late Roman Empire, which was actually a surprisingly liberal place, and how a zealous group of early Christians captured this society and pushed it into what is now known as the Dark Ages. So again, a warning about the need to protect liberal systems from illiberal, monolithic ideas. I'm going to stop here, but let me read out again a few reading lists that you may find interesting for the purposes of understanding what I'm saying. There is The Open Society and Its Enemies by Karl Popper, The Road to Serfdom by Friedrich Hayek, as well as his Nobel Prize lecture on Pretense of Knowledge, The Darkening Age by Catherine Nixie, India and the Age of Ideas by Sanjeev Sanyal, and The Hymns of the Rig Veda, for which there are several translations. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now we will check out a video called Time Lapse of the Future, a journey to the end of time, and then get into smart city projects handled or at least talked about by Sanjeev Sanyal in small 10-15 minute videos. Okay. This is going to be fascinating first, because we are going to talk about and see the similarities with the idea of a god in Hinduism as well as the Nasadya Suktam. থাম গান্ডু, অনেক হয়েছে। ও তো yes, Jagannath Sarkar, Sitaram Goel were not writing their what we call history today. That history, they were not writing it from other history books. They were writing it from what they considered to be the truth, the historical occurrences, based on the existing Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. Okay, so if you want to read history as we call the subject of history, then Jagannath Sarkar, R.C. Majumdar is fine. If you just want to read Sanskrit texts, which are not really known as history in English grammar, so in that sense, you'll have to get into Oriental research institutes.
The Holocene has ended. What we do now?
Gravity. We just discussed the Hinduism as a base for a liberal framework. And now, and after this, we will check out smart city projects handled by Sanjeev Sanyal, or at least talked about by Sanjeev Sanyal. And just because we discussed the Nasadiya Suktam and the way I understand that Hinduism talks about God, for that reason, we are going to take a look at a video that sort of takes into account different scientists' predictions of how the universe will end up being, and that might have some relevance to something related to Hinduism closely. Okay, check this out. Okay. Do music producers prefer Mac over Windows built PCs for production? Is graphics card even needed for production? Some music softwares, the interface is so beautiful and stuff, and that requires graphics card. I don't have a graphics card. I have an AMD processor, so it has an inbuilt graphics card, but that's enough for me. Music producers usually prefer Mac over Windows because generally Macs are better than Windows, but you can run pirated softwares in Mac. So if someone's a DJ who doesn't need too many softwares, or he's a full-time music producer who works in big industries like Bollywood and South Indian movie industry, only they can afford to have a Mac. Let's start now. And remember this, okay? How the counting goes on. Go on looking at the years at the bottom of the screen, okay?
The Holocene has ended. What we do now and in the next few years will profoundly affect the next few thousand years. The only conditions modern humans have ever known so far are changing, and changing fast.
Nothing stays the same on this planet. Everything changes. The Earth is going into one of these jumps, and you don't know what is going to be on the other side of those jumps. The Earth is always jumping. Things move on this planet. Things are not still. Everything is turning.
So these are the years, okay? 17,714 AD basically. So I'll turn the closed captions off so that you all can look at the eras and the years as well, okay? So the prediction goes Sahara becomes tropical at around 17,000 AD.
As it begins to run out of fuel, the sun won't simply
No, this is the future. This is year 732 AD.
fade away to nothing. Its core will collapse, and the extra heat this generates will cause its outer layers to expand. The sun is now dead. It remains slowly cooling in the freezing temperatures of deep space. The fate of the sun is the same as for all stars. One day, they must all eventually die, and the cosmos will be plunged into eternal night.
All stars eventually will run out of fuel. The temperature of the universe drops. The stars, one by one, in the night sky, will turn off. There'll be no more new stars created. And so that the universe will end not with a bang, but with a whimper. And not in fire, but in ice.
With no fuel left to burn, a white dwarf's faint glow comes from the last residual heat from its extinguished furnace. Looking at it from where the Earth is now, it would only generate the same amount of light as the full moon on a clear night. The faint glow of white dwarfs will provide the only illumination in a dark and empty void littered with dead stars and black holes.
In some ways, it's kind of a ghost universe. It's the corpses, the zombie stars, that will take us into the future.
These are all speculations, and the main point of watching this video is what happens in the end. Let's get to bit forward. 1 trillion years.
A proton.
Oh, this part is fun. Oh, Boshali is saying let's look at the entire thing. Okay, let's look at from there only.
Black dwarfs are dark, dense, decaying. A black dwarf will be the final fate of those last stars. White dwarfs that have become so cold that they barely emit any more heat or light. Black dwarfs are dark, dense, decaying balls of degenerate matter, little more than the ashes of stars. Their constituent atoms are so severely crushed that black dwarfs are 1,000,000 times denser than our sun. Stars take so long to reach this point, we believe there are currently no black dwarfs in the universe.
We have a pace of life that's based on really the energy available to us now. You could imagine living conscious systems which have...
All I hope is that my descendants are still there, living up until this point. They are probably by now, 9-10 feet tall, maybe have more than 2 arms, maybe live as an AI, a hologram, but who knows. I hope all your descendants and my descendants live to see these days.
a very different pace and therefore can extend out at least a lot farther than you'd imagine otherwise. You could have a living system where if it had a thought every 10 trillion years, that would seem normal. Even if our life dies out, one could imagine at some time arbitrarily far in the future, a fluctuation occurs which allows intelligent life to exist again for a little while. So you might have islands in time of intelligence.
Oh,
A proton, one of the fundamental building blocks of atomic matter, what makes us up, can just spontaneously fall apart.
Any material that evades the pull of a black hole eventually dies away as its protons disintegrate.
The matter inside black dwarfs, the last matter in the universe, will eventually evaporate away and be carried off into the void as radiation, leaving absolutely nothing behind. With the black dwarfs gone, there won't be a single atom of matter left. All that will remain of our once rich cosmos will be particles of light and black holes.
only light will remain. Yes, Boshalidi, that's why I like this video in the first place. Because I found this video and my interest in
time creates a bright window in the universe
Hinduism began at the same time.
during which life is possible. The arrow of time creates a bright window in the universe's adolescence, during which life is possible.
A window.
But it's
When
a
light,
window that doesn't stay open for long.
a small window of
As a
possibility.
fraction of the lifespan of the universe, as measured from its beginning to the evaporation of the last black hole, life, as we know it, is only possible for 1,000th of a billion billionth of a percent.
Black holes become the fundamental building block of the universe. A galaxy will basically be a supermassive black hole in the center with smaller black holes orbiting.
Zombie galaxies filled with black holes continue to evolve.
They'll eat each other and they'll get bigger, and maybe they'll fall into the supermassive black hole and it'll get bigger. The universe will still be an exciting, dynamic place. It's just that the timescales we're talking about are now trillions of years instead of thousands or millions of years.
Black holes can bang on space-time like mallets on a drum.
For the non-musicians here, mallets on a drum is that xylophone kind of thing, okay? That's called a mallet kind of instrument, okay? उसपे जो थोड़ा बहुत स्टिक से एक थिक राउंड हेड रहता है, उससे हिट जो होता है, उससे जो पल्सेस क्रिएट होते हैं, वो बोला जा रहा है, ठीक है? मैलेट्स ऑन अ ड्रम ही बोला जा रहा है, ठीक है? Think of, yes, Vaishali Di gets it.
And they have a very characteristic song.
Has a very characteristic song.
Imagine two black holes that have lived a long life together. At the end of their lives, they're going around each other, crossing thousands of kilometers in a fraction of a second. As they do so, they leave behind in their wake a ringing of space, an actual wave on space-time. Space squeezes and stretches as it emanates out from these black holes banging on the universe. Those are the gravitational waves. They're literally the sounds of space ringing. And they will travel out from these black holes at the speed of light as they ring down and coalesce to one spinning, quiet black hole. If you were standing near enough, your ear would resonate with the squeezing and stretching of space. You would literally hear the sound. Imagine a lighter black hole falling into a very heavy black hole. The sound you're hearing is a light black hole banging on space each time it gets close. As it falls in, it gets faster and it gets louder.
Scientists used to think black holes were immortal, but even these will one day die.
Now we're talking about time scales of unimaginable length, quadrillions of years into the future. On that time scale, even the black holes begin to evaporate.
According to quantum mechanics, space is filled with virtual particles, and antiparticles, that are constantly materializing in pairs, separating, coming together again, and annihilating each other. In the presence of a black hole, one member of a pair of virtual particles may fall into the hole, leaving the other member without a partner with which to annihilate. The forsaken particle appears to be radiation emitted by the black hole. And so, black holes are not eternal. They evaporate away at an increasing rate until they vanish, in a gigantic explosion. Quantum mechanics has allowed particles and radiation to escape from the ultimate prison, a black hole.
Uh-huh. We need to pause here, and I'll answer Srijan's question as well. As the black holes slowly die off, the universe continues to expand, driven by a mysterious force we don't yet understand. Srijan, the comments are responding to the similarities between Hindu philosophy or Hindu philosophical understanding of the cosmology and what the scientists are predicting. Sounds far-fetched, but they seem to rhyme. They are not exact substitutes or replications of predictions, essentially. And I think that's very fascinating, to say at the very least. And if you say, how could people in 3000 BC know about this? Well, since they were naturalists, they were naturalists. They believed in observing nature and pondering over, contemplating over how things in nature operate. That is most definitely connected, right? Most things operate and live and die in the same ways, and even inanimate objects to some degrees have similar qualities. Now, for that reason, if someone ponders over them and their main job is often sitting down quietly and thinking these things, drawing these connections, making these connections with how the world might have come to be, how society came to be, how the human body came to be, based on what's their data set. Their data set is the nature they see around them, which is why Hinduism happens in India, not in a desert. So there's so much data to collect all around you in Haryana back then. That is why it's, I think, highly plausible that thinking hard enough could get them to reach at least the basic operating mechanism, or the basic principles of things occurring in the universe. Right. How many of you all have read Rig Veda? You all have read other stuff though. I have read a bit of Rig Veda. So this is the frontier of human knowledge, a frontier ripe for exploration and discovery.
Philosophers and poets have asked the question, will the world end in fire or ice? We can now give an answer. The latest evidence shows that the universe is not slowing down, but it's speeding up out of control. And the universe, we think, will die in ice. Trillions upon trillions of years from now.
Empty space itself has energy. In every little cubic centimeter of space, whether or not there's stuff, whether or not there's particles, matter, radiation, or whatever, there is still energy, even in the space itself. And this energy, according to Einstein, exerts a push on the universe.
What is the weird stuff that's accelerating the universe? We call it dark energy. And the stuff is the dominant stuff of the universe. Almost 3/4 of the matter energy content of the universe is this dark energy. And we don't know what it is.
3/4 of the content of the universe is dark energy, and we don't know what it is. Therefore, wait to see how the video ends. Okay.
Dark energy, unlike matter or radiation, does not dilute away as the universe expands. This has crucial implications for what the universe is going to do in the future.
So what will be the future of the universe?
Well, if the dark energy remains dominant and repulsive, the universe will expand forever. Faster and faster and faster with time. A runaway universe.
70% of the energy of the universe resides in empty space, and we don't understand why. But we do know what will happen. If that energy continues to be there, the universe will become cold and dark and empty. That's the future as it might be. We don't know because we don't yet understand the nature of dark energy. Until we do, we won't know the future. We won't even understand our own origins. And that's why we want to know and study this subject.
A free market of physics, free market of laws. Libertarianism is Sanatan. Oh my god. Some would harbor the right conditions for life. 99 billion trillion years later. Fuck. More universes could come about. Where else have you heard this?
The forecast does seem to be for an ever colder, ever emptier universe. But then, of course, we have to ask, could that end lead to a new beginning?
A new beginning?
And there are ideas whereby what actually is the end of our universe could in some sense be linked to the beginning of a new one.
We've worked out the mathematics, the equations. They seem to say that if you have an atom smasher that can concentrate tremendous amounts of energy at a single point, you can perhaps open up a gateway, a baby universe. Facing the death of everything there is, this perhaps is their only possibility of escape. And this also raises a very intriguing possibility, sheer speculation of course, that perhaps any universe that has intelligent life in it will create baby universes, will create lifeboats, and proliferate child universes. So an evolution may take among universes in the multiverse. Survival of the fittest may take place. So those universes which do not have intelligent life are infertile. They have no children. But those universes that have mild temperatures, stars like us, would create civilizations that could open up child universes, and they would then proliferate.
Child universes. Oh. The background music. My God. Oh.
after an unimaginable length of time. Even the black holes will have evaporated, and the universe will be nothing but a sea of photons gradually tending towards the same temperature as the expansion of the universe cools them towards absolute zero. Once the very last remnants of the very last stars have finally decayed away to nothing, and everything reaches the same temperature, the story of the universe finally comes to an end. For the first time in its life, the universe will be permanent and unchanging. Entropy finally stops increasing because the cosmos cannot get any more disordered. Nothing happens, and it keeps not happening forever.
Nothing happens and nothing keeps happening forever. Now, smart cities. That's the strangest of segues. Economic Sutra. That was the name of the program on Rajya Sabha TV 3 years back. Oh, so there weren't multiple videos. So it's just one video where they discuss all the cities. So nice. It's going to be fun. Yeah, I just want to give you two disclaimers. Slevin is saying, thank you for showing a wonderful video. A, StreamYard's counter streaming audio quality is absolutely horrendous. You did not, you heard like 20-30% of the quality of the actual background score. Okay. And I was watching it at 1.25. So obviously make sure you all watch it on your own time in full HD at the real speed as well.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the second edition of Economic
Young Sanjeev Sanyal.
Sutra. And here we will be talking about the Smart Cities program. Now, this program started a few years ago, and many of you have asked me what happened to it, what was the outcome. So here what we will do is to show you how this project has progressed and what have been many of the very interesting outcomes and very diverse outcomes that have happened across the country. But first, let me explain to you the philosophy behind it and why it is quite different from earlier urban interventions that the central government has attempted. To understand this, you need to...
Yeah, Rishabh, I've heard Newtown submitted a request for getting smart city funds, but the project is on hold. I think they're not doing anything about it.
First,
there were supposed to be rounds of smart city projects. So first round mein jin logon ne naam diya, or basically you had to give a presentation from the state side. Okay, you see, this is what I'm going to do with your funds, therefore give me funds. So there, Newtown also submitted. Some other cities also submitted. They were supposed to happen in the second round, third round. I don't know what's the status of that.
Think about the economic philosophy as well as the urban philosophy that we had in the post-independence period. So if you go back before independence, one of the things that you will notice is that different parts of the country had very different architecture, different urban designs, and so on. Now, this is obviously only to be expected. After all, we're a big country, diverse culturally as well as climatically. So you should expect very different urban outcomes. And yet, if you look at cities built after independence, you will see that there is a great deal of uniformity. Basically, the same RCC blocks that you see in Coimbatore are the same as the ones in Jodhpur, are the same that you see in Guwahati or Jorhat. Now, why is it that we ended up with this conformity? The reason for this was derived from the same top-down socialist planning that was there in the economic planning, the 5-year plans. That same philosophy turns up in urban thinking in terms of the Corbusierian modernist movement, which basically tried to create
the model that screwed Chandigarh forever and after, and nothing keeps happening there forever and after.
Idealized set of rules or building codes that were then spread
So
across
Sanjeev
the
Sanyal is
country.
arguing
so
that.
basically what you
So Sanjeev Sanyal is arguing that this model, this way of doing things, is better than the Congress way of doing things because of two reasons mainly. A, it takes into account the different kinds of demands of different cities and different states, and it allows for change. It allows for evolution. It allows for functioning, not just one plan, one way of doing things, and one way of aesthetics even, and do that all across the country. Ha 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 is saying what to argue against that Hindi is eating super local languages like Kumaoni, Garhwali, and various others across the state, as they are morons do not understand that people learn to get. Oh, ha, ha. I was going to reply that only, bhai. कि ऐसा ही है. You are not. No one can fight this. This is organic. Everyone needs to learn Hindi. It wasn't organic at one point. It was pushed on us with Bollywood and Doordarshan, Hindi, and then other languages, vernacular languages, etc. But the cat's out of the bag, and most people by default understand Hindi all over the country. So if people don't have enough economic opportunities to learn their mother tongue along with their job language, it's going to get lost. So the best way to save any regional language is for that region to do insanely great economically. No fucking other way. You can't save, because many languages got lost from the past eras as well, right? How did they get lost? They lost relevancy in the economic sector.
Had is a socialist planning that was there in the economic planning, the 5-year plans. That same philosophy turns up in urban thinking in terms of the Corbusierian modernist movement, which basically tried to create an idealized set of rules or building codes that were then spread across the country. So basically what you had is a top-down idea of what an ideal city was, and consequently we were expected then to have a replication of that model across the country. So you ended up with the same building codes, the same box-like RCC constructions, the same kind of neighborhoods or layouts or colonies, depending on which part of the country you live, but basically they all look the same. Now, as time passed, this sort of approach has slowly begun to evolve. You've seen a breakdown of this. Yet, a lot of this thinking has continued to be embedded in many other urban interventions. For example, the urban interventions like the Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renewal Mission. Again, largely top-driven.
There are some
by the
JNN
Planning Commission.
There are some JNN URM buses that run in Bengal. Okay, I don't know if they run anymore or not. So because of this word, it's called Junurma, like as if it's a mother of some girl called Junu. Junurma buses.
With the idea that essentially there were certain ideal interventions that every Indian city needed, and that they could then be pushed.
No, Imshastri, Sanjeev Sanyal's argument is that Corbusier was also a problem. His basic philosophy of urban planning was a problem because he looked at cities as a well-oiled machine, okay? But still a machine. Well-oiled machine, everyone does their part. So everyone does their part, meaning fixed rigid structure like a caste system. But what he is trying to do is make cities function like a living, breathing organism. So not beautiful, not just aesthetics, functionality. That's not what was Corbusier's vision or way of doing things, his philosophy.
Interventions that every Indian city needed, and that they could then be pushed down from the top to the bottom. The Smart Cities mission takes this idea and turns it on its head. The thinking here, and as you may have seen in the very first episode of the series, was that there is no ideal optimal equilibrium or ideal structure. What you really have are customized contextual solutions to all problems, but in this case, urban problems. So what we did is a completely different thing. We went out to different parts of the country, to different cities, and asked the citizens and the urban managers, what is it that you want?
Yeah.
And in 2016, we launched this in a big way in various kind of contests were put forward. And as a result of that, we managed to get lots of ideas from different parts of the country. And some of those cities were then selected for the Smart Cities mission. and then they were given resources to go out there and do these projects. Now, over the course of the last 3 years, consequently, many of these projects have now finally been completed. So what are we going to do in this episode? Well, we're going to go and look at some of these projects, look at what was there before and what has come out of it afterwards. So here are some of the smart city projects we selected for this show. So here is an example of a great smart city intervention. It's in the city of Indore. There were, of course, many smart city interventions in Indore, including cleaning it up, which many people may have heard about. But this particular intervention relates to street food. Indore is, of course, justly very famous for its street food. But what was done here was to take a street called Chappan and convert it into a pedestrianized area with lots of street food stalls opening up, seating, and so on. And what has happened as a result of this, a public space has been created literally out of thin air and very, very popular, and it has literally transformed the nightlife of the city. So let's go and have a look at it.
With its historical origins going back centuries in time, Indore took up the challenge to stand with the most modern cities of our times. Indore has been
PUBG players, can you all hear the drums playing in the background? That's a software, loops from a software called Damage 1. I really like Damage 2 because Damage 1 has been used so extensively, so it's become cliched now. PUBG did an insane thing. They did not really do any real background score composing. They just put damage loops all over the video game, almost.
Forerunner among the smart cities before becoming the top-ranked city for the year 2020. The city is implementing 277 projects worth 7,500 crore rupees under the Smart Cities mission. 4,711 crore rupees is dedicated to projects within the area-based development or ABD radius. The city worked on improving its identity by reviving old heritage structures. Its people welcomed the effort to improve waste management and develop public and commercial places. Backed by this strong local support for smart city projects, Indore made visible gains in a time-bound manner.
The concept of smart city is to provide decent standard of living to people using smart solutions. These smart solutions basically give a boost to the services in all the major areas of development like economic, physical, infrastructure, and institutional.
Apart from the contribution of union and state governments, the Indore Smart City Development Limited, or ISCDL, has been raising funds for its projects, mainly from private parties. The result was to make Indore the cleanest city for the 4th year in a row in 2020. Besides rebuilding for better and healthier living, Indore also has a vibrant street food culture. Its Mumbai city's chowpatty-like markets, such as the Sarafa Bazaar and Chappan Dukan, have been revived through decongestion and pedestrianization. ISCDL brought order to this iconic commercial street while keeping its liveliness intact. Chappan Dukan is literally 56 shops on a 175-meter road stretch. Over time, the place became congested and chaotic with traffic movement, haphazard parking, and encroachments. But redevelopment, undertaken over a short period, resulted in a sea change. The 56 shops now have upgraded facades, reflecting a consistent theme. The entire area has been made a vehicle-free zone with thematic seating places.
I think Mamata Banerjee or whoever was doing this kind of copied the idea at a place called Patuli. This place used to have some stalls and stuff, some fuchka, not very organized. This is how it looks now. This absolutely reminds me of what I learned from this smart city project of Indore, at least the Chappan area. This is exactly how it operates now.
यूं तो हम इंदौरीज हैं, हम चटोरे इंदौरी कहलाते हैं और स्वाद को हमेशा प्रेफर करते हैं, लेकिन सेकंड थिंग अगर अब बात की जाए तो यहाँ का जो सीटिंग अरेंजमेंट है पब्लिक के लिए वो बहुत अच्छा।
थोड़ा सा डेंस वैसा लगता था, लेकिन अब धीरे धीरे थोड़ा वाइड हुआ है, ओपन हुआ है और लोग जो है तो अब बहुत मतलब एवरीथिंग हैज बिकम वेरी सिस्टमेटाइज्ड।
आय में वृद्धि 25 से 30% हुआ है। जैसे कि पहले क्राउड होता था तो आय व्यापार उतना नहीं था जितना अभी चलता है।
खासियत इस प्लेस की ये है कि यहाँ जो भी चीजें मिलती हैं बहुत ही सस्ती और रीजनेबल रेटिंग में मिलती है।
The results speak for themselves. Indore is a city that does things much better.
The point about smart city interventions, as you have gathered, is really a bottom-up idea. So you have very different interventions happening in different cities. So the last one that you just saw related to street food. But here is another one. This is in Surat. It's an old fort in Surat that has been revived. Now, this fort was built by the Gujarat Sultanate somewhere in the 1540s as protection for this port against Portuguese marauders. Then this port and the fort as well moved into the hands of the Mughals and finally into the hands of the East India Company. After independence, this fort area basically was run as a series of government offices. But what has been done under the Smart Cities project is to clear out these government offices and to revive this fort as a tourist site, as a heritage site. And as you will see, it has really created a new public space for the city as well as a museum.
A city with a history that dates back to 300 BC. Today, it's the economic capital of Gujarat. Yes, we are talking about Surat, a place of great prosperity.
Surat is the economic capital of Gujarat, not Ahmedabad. I see.
All through the ages. All through its glorious past, the city has harbored ships from as many as 84 countries. Down the ages, it has seen many rulers and governments transform the city.
This is a river Tapi and it connects to the Arabian Sea. So all the ships which were coming to Surat, they were parked in Arabian Sea and all the material were shifted through river Tapi to Surat Castle. All that movement of the goods were controlled from here.
Under the Smart City mission, Surat City Administration and city residents have brought in a paradigm shift. The work on the Surat Fort in Chowk area is one of its most distinctive projects.
When Surat Castle, the conservation work started, this is the frame where you can understand how big trees were here. All those kind of roots have been cleaned from here up to the last tip of their roots, and then slowly we have opened the castle, understood the construction system with lime and those kind of different.
तो अब प्रॉब्लम है कि देखो भाई, गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस था, अंदर रूट्स घुसने दिया. अब गवर्नमेंट अपना पैसा बना के, पैसा खर्च करके फिर इसको एक टूरिस्ट स्पॉट बना रही है. तो the difference here is of intentions, but shouldn't or couldn't it have been done by private money, pooling of resources, etc.
Different sizes of the bricks were there. So all that has been fabricated and then restored. So here you can see the picture after restoration, and this is before restoration. It shows us and it gives us a clue that this is not a one phase of construction. It has been built over a period of times, and there are 6 layers of construction. So this, what you can see, is the last major construction done by the Gujarat Sultanate. So this is a Gujarat Sultanate layer, but on this side, the sizes of the bricks which you can see is quite big. The lime mortar and the quality of construction is different. This is a primitive construction done in the Firoz Shah Tughlaq time. So it was never a ruling fort, and hence what you can see is a very strong construction.
An exhibition space, Royal Conference Hall, and research library give visitors a glimpse into the rich heritage
Because this guy is the architect who's designing it, who's looking over this project directly.
of the fort.
यहाँ आके ऐसे पता चलता है कि what is this fort and what is the history about this fort. बहुत अच्छा documentation हुआ है and
how the Britishers started making the coins in the mints, and then it lasted till 1947. So there is a lot to learn from the castle.
When we came to
Because the problem is, who knows how long it will be a tourist attraction in the first place? Then who makes the money? And the money that was spent on rebuilding it, the money that's spent every day on maintaining it, who pays for that? There lies the problems.
That even the historic projects also can be part of the smart city mission. And we went for the complete conservation project of the not Surat Castle, but the whole Chowk area as a precinct, approved by the Smart City Mission. And under that, when this project came, we could do n number of things which were limitation by SMC because of the funds.
The next project is in Devangiri, which is a small town in Karnataka. This is a water conservation project. Essentially, there was a temple tank that had fallen into disuse. So what has been done is to revive the step well as a way of sort of bringing back a traditional water conservation system, but also a public space that can now be used for multiple uses.
Davangere was among the first cities chosen for the Smart Cities mission. This centrally located city in Karnataka has many projects divided into area-based development and fan city units.
ಮೂಲ ದಾವಣಗೆರೆಯ ಹೊಂಡದ ಸರ್ಕಲ್ ಏನಿತ್ತು, ಆ ಹೊಂಡ ಸರ್ಕಲ್ಗೆ ಹೆಸರು ಬರಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣ ಆಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಹೊಂಡ, ತುಂಬಾ ಪುರಾತನವಾದಂತಹ ಹೊಂಡ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಅದನ್ನ ಇಂದಿನ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕುಡಿಯೋ ನೀರಿಗೆ ಬಳಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸೌಲಭ್ಯಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಬಳಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇತ್ತೀಚಿನ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ದಿನ ಕಳೆದಂತೆ ಅದೊಂತಹ ಕೊಳಚೆಯ ಗುಂಡಿಯಾಗಿ ಕಸವನ್ನ ಬಿಸಾಕುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಡಸ್ಟ್ ಬಿನ್ ತರ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಸ್ಮಾರ್ಟ್ ಸಿಟಿಯ ಯೋಜನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇವತ್ತು ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸುಂದರವಾದಂತಹ ಪುಷ್ಕರಣಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಆಗಿದೆ.
Located near Hondada Circle is the Kalyani Kund water tank. It has a lot of cultural significance for the Durga Ambika temple. Devotees believe its water was sacred, but post-1991, the tank became defunct for lack of maintenance. There were several attempts to restore this heritage structure.
ನಾವು ಹೊಂಡ ಸರ್ಕಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 45 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದನೂ ಇದೀವಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳ ಗಲೀಜಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಹೊಂಡ ಇತ್ತು, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀರು ಬಹಳ ಶುದ್ಧವಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ನೀರನ್ನ. ಸ್ಮಾರ್ಟ್ ಸಿಟಿಯಿಂದ ಇದಾಗಿ ಮೇಲೆ ಪುಷ್ಕರಣೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ದಾವಣಗೆರೆ ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರ ಕಾಣುತ್ತಿದೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಸರ್ಕಲ್ ನಾವು ಬಹಳ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ವಯಸ್ಸಿದ್ದ ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಈಗ ನೋಡೋಕೆ ಬಹಳ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಇದೆ. ಅದೇನು ನಾವು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ವಯಸ್ಸಿದ್ದ ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕಂತ ಏನು ನೋಡಂಗಿದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ, ಹಂಗಿತ್ತು. ಈ ಪುಷ್ಕರಣೆ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸರ್ಕಲ್ ಸುಂದರ ಕಾಣಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೂ ಬಹಳ ಸಂತೋಷ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇದೇ ರೀತಿ ದಾವಣಗೆರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ನಗರ ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ ಮಾಡಲಿ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಲಿ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಸ್ಮಾರ್ಟ್ ಸಿಟಿ ಅವರನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ.
The next smart city project is in Tumkuru. It's also in Karnataka. It's, I believe, 60 kilometers from Bengaluru. Here, there was an old slum, about 3 decades old or so, called Mariamma Nagar. And it was, as many slums are, with very limited urban amenities. What has been done as part of this Smart Cities project is to clear out the slum and provide the residents, about 87 odd families, with a completely modern amenities.
They can't afford it.
Located close to Bengaluru, Tumkuru is a small city in Karnataka. With an investment of 1,800 crore rupees under the Smart Cities mission, it is one of the 7 smart cities in the state. The Tumkuru Smart City Limited emphasizes safety-enabled, smart transit, better transportation, and green infrastructure system. The central government-funded Smart City Mission project has made a noticeable difference in the Mariam Nagar slum located in the heart of Tumkuru.
ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾಲ್ಕು ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೇ ರೂಮ್ ಇರೋದು, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಡಿಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಮಲ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಬಾತ್ರೂಮ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಚ್ಚಲಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಏನೂ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಹಾಲ್ ಇದೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಬೆಡ್ರೂಮ್ ಬಾತ್ರೂಮ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಚ್ಚಲಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾಲ್ಕು ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೇ ರೂಮ್ ಇರೋದು, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಡಿಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಮಲ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಇರ್ತದೆ.
What's Ambedkar doing there? There's Ambedkar at the top left.
ಬಾತ್ರೂಮ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಚ್ಚಲಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಏನೂ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಹಾಲ್ ಇದೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಬೆಡ್ರೂಮ್ ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಕಿಚನ್ ಇದೆ, ಬಾತ್ರೂಮ್ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಇದೆ, ಬಚ್ಚಲಿದೆ, ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ ನಮಗೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಇದೆ.
Yeah, and if she could maintain a house like this, she would not have lived in a slum in the first place, probably.
In particular, the Smart City Fund has proved to be a boon for 87 families here. For nearly 25
For how long?
years, these families lived in unhygienic conditions in the slum without any basic
वहाँ
infrastructure.
पे गिटार ड्रॉ कर दिया, बाप रे.
Using Smart City Mission funds, a housing scheme was launched for them at a cost of 14 crore rupees, financed equally by the centre and the state government. The project has come up in 3 blocks, A, B, and C, with 88 units or houses with vitrified flooring. Common spaces had granite flooring to make the houses feel luxurious and comfortable. The project also has a self-sufficient provision of a community centre, livelihood centre, and also an...
Imagine the incentive structures for this. You create a slum out of nowhere, start living there, and few years later, the government donates a nice luxurious apartment to you.
Anganwadi Centre.
Varanasi is a city that is justly famous for its temples and its ghats. In recent years, many efforts have been made to clean up these ghats. There is a specific project, as you all know, called the Kashi Vishwanath Corridor. But as part of the Smart Cities project, a few of these ghats have been taken up and they are being brought back to their past glory. This is about conserving, of course, their traditional architecture, but also about creating a public space right along the Ganga where everybody from all walks of life can enjoy the river.
Kashi, a city older than history, older than tradition. Is poised for a modern makeover while keeping its heritage alive. The Varanasi Smart City Limited was set up on 29th October 2016 to execute the Smart City mission. The holy city is transforming its urban landscape by providing ease of living to residents and tourists. Its urban ecosystem has the 4 pillars of comprehensive development: institutional, physical, social, and economic infrastructure. One of the smart city initiatives of Varanasi is the Ghats revitalization and facade restoration work.
Not 10 years, maybe in another 30, 40, 50 years. फिर से कोई आएगा. अगर 10 years में होता है तो तुम ये अज्यूम कर लो कि वहां पे मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग हो रहा है या फिर बिल्डर्स कट मनी दे रहे हैं इतना, उसलिए कट मनी या फिर मतलब पार्टी फंड्स.
The Ghats are the most prominent and historically significant feature of the city. The constant wearing down, unplanned additions, disorganized spaces, and faulty connectivity have changed the original character of these Ghats. Facades of adjoining private properties that are integral parts of the Ghats were also in a dilapidated state. These structures need a holistic effort to restore the heritage, integrity, and visual identity of the Ganga river bank.
Ghats are the lifeline of Varanasi. So while designing the smart city projects, we have taken extra care to see that the original historical characteristics of the ancient Kasi town is kept, and simultaneously modern technology is used for the delight of the visiting tourists and pilgrims.
The redevelopment of the Ghat area work has included step cleaning, restoring hardscapes, organizing informal and formal activities, streetscape elements like street furniture, lighting, and improvement of Ghat infrastructure and amenities. The project is estimated to cost 11.88 crore rupees. The Varanasi Smart City recently developed a 5-story, 375 two-wheeler parking lot at Godolia Crossing, one of the most congested places of Old Kashi. Prime Minister Modi inaugurated it in July this year. It has 33 shops on the ground floor. Besides parking, the main idea was to decongest the streets. In addition to raising quality of life standards, the Varanasi Smart City is aiming to rejuvenate Kashi as a sustainable global hub of culture, heritage, and spirituality.
Agartala is the capital of Tripura in the far northeast of India. It's a small city, but a beautiful city. And
yes, that's exactly my concern as well. And remember Nayak for these things. Nayak absolutely described the situation perfectly. कि लोग गरीब ही हैं, कुछ लोग गरीब ही होंगे. जो गरीब हैं वो घटिया जगह पे ही रहेंगे. घटिया जगह are affordable. Beautiful places are not affordable. What's the big mystery in this? तो अगर हर लोगों को ब्यूटीफुल जगह देना ही है पब्लिक टैक्सेस से, तो that's just classic socialism. Because these don't even generate wealth. The Varanasi area still makes some sense. There were a lot of safety issues, जिसके लिए अगर कुछ सेफ्टी का घपला हो जाता उसके लिए भी स्टेट ही फंड करता to rectify the situation. So why not take precautionary measures? So the indoor smart city project to makes perfect sense, but definitely not the slum. And they will make it slum like, or just give rent the place to someone and leave and make a slum somewhere else, and that place will look like a slum again in a few decades.
And like many smaller cities, it did not have an integrated traffic control system till very recently. But as part of the Smart Cities project, it now has a control room that not only provides for control of traffic, but also provides surveillance of the roads for security and other reasons. So let's go and have a look at the brand new surveillance systems and control rooms that have been introduced in Agartala.
City of peace and joy. Agartala is one of the largest cities in the northeast. It is today a pioneer in implementing smart city projects. The Agartala Smart City Limited has identified 2,800 acres for development.
How many of you all have seen Pearl Harbor and like the background score done by Hans Zimmer, of course? This music seems to be done on the reference track of that piece. Of course, no one was hired to do the background score for these things. These are like stock music, but whoever made it probably did this with keeping in mind the Pearl Harbor track, the famous Pearl Harbor piece.
It is today a pioneer in implementing smart city projects. The Agartala Smart City Limited has identified 2,800 acres for development. The city is radically transforming its infrastructure with urban design initiatives like placemaking, visual improvement of roads, and junction design. An integrated command and control center helps the city to collate information. Collaborative monitoring facilitates analysis of this data for quicker decision-making. Intelligent operations capabilities facilitate integrated data visualization, real-time collaboration, CCTV for flood monitoring, as well as road network management. The Integrated Command and Control Center facilitates smart city solutions, including city surveillance, integrated traffic management system, traffic violation detection system, each alarm devices, etc. Agartala has also developed a 5-year sustainability model that leverages its integrated smart solutions to earn revenue for the smart city.
So friends, I hope you got a sense of the various projects that are being done under the Smart Cities program. You've just seen a smattering of these projects, of course. There are many more that are already being done. There are many more in the pipeline. But the idea here is to get you to understand what is the philosophy and the kinds of projects that get done. But very importantly, please find out whether or not there is a Smart Cities project in your city. We would love to have your feedback, both positive and negative, because after all, feedback-based policy making is about understanding right from the bottom what is actually going on and what citizens really think about these projects. So please give us some feedback, of course, social media and many other avenues that are there on government portals and so on, so that we policymakers know what actually goes on the ground. So viewers,
लेटेस्ट अपडेट्स के लिए
यहाँ छोटा मोटा टोयोटो में आता है.
I'm going to check out this clip for two reasons. A, the slum aspect, and B, this Duare Didi concept, or you can directly call up Arvind Kejriwal, etc. These are absolute socialist band-aids, because why on earth you need to be directly on call with the chief minister? It means all the babus have failed. Why are we paying the salaries of all those people beneath you? Why do I need to get on a phone call with you? Fire them and then get on a phone call with me. वो करके दिखाते हैं कि देखो मैंने कितना बड़ा काम कर दिया. अरे वो तुम्हारा फेलियर का सिंबल है.
सीएम ऑटो में लगता है अब इस देश का कुछ होगा.
Hey Shiva, all the best.
थैंक यू.
हाँ, इस जगह में अगर कॉपीराइट आया तो ये जगह हटा दूंगा. उसका ऑप्शन देता है कि कॉपीराइटेड सेक्शंस हटा दे क्या. तो दीदी के बोलो, नॉट दुआरे दीदी के बोलो, या कॉल अप दीदी डायरेक्टली और सेंड अ मैसेज टू हर डायरेक्टली, और I'll just share the revenue with Ultra for this portion. Who cares?
Please excuse me. Welcome.
A.R. Rahman did some good work in this movie, man, as background scorer. But see, the entire thing is a symptom of a destroyed socialist situation. इतने सारे बाबूस को बुला के गाली गलौज करेंगे. That happens every other month in West Bengal. Those of you who are from West Bengal know what I'm talking about. There's a separate event for this. She puts up a pandal, invites all news channels, and invites all the bureaucrats and criticizes them heavily, harshly, publicly in front of everyone to get claps, and then nothing changes. Nothing happens, and nothing keeps on happening forever.
के सारे डिपार्टमेंट हेड्स को बुलाइए. यस सर, राइट नाउ. गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीबॉडी. सर, ये 84 के बैच के आईएएस ऑफिसर. सॉरी, जान पहचान के लिए हमारे पास वक्त नहीं है. कमिंग टू द पॉइंट, वी आर गोइंग टू डॉग्स. सब कुछ है हमारे पास, लेकिन फिर भी हमारी गिनती पिछड़े हुए देशों में की जाती है। कारण 3, पहले वो लोग जो ईमानदारी से अपना काम नहीं करते, दूसरे वो लोग
which is incentivized,
जो ईमानदारी से काम करने वाले को रोकते हैं,
which is incentivized,
और तीसरे वो लोग जो अपनी पोजीशन, अपनी अधिकार का गलत फायदा उठाते हैं,
which is most incentivized in the system.
हर गैर कानूनी काम करने वाला कानून से बचने के लिए या तो चमचागिरी करता है, गुंडागर्दी करता है, रिश्वत देता है, या फिर अपनी नाजायज कमाई का थोड़ा सा हिस्सा देकर खुलेआम घूमता है। एक चपरासी से लेकर ऊपर तक आप सब लोग करप्ट हो चुके हैं। आई एम सॉरी टू से दिस बट दैट्स द ट्रुथ। इन सारे अफसरों के खिलाफ हजारों कंप्लेंट्स दर्ज की जाती है, लेकिन कोई एक्शन नहीं लिया जाता, बस फाइलें बनाकर कोने में दबा दी जाती। वो सारी फाइलें जमीन खोद कर निकालिए या दीवार तोड़कर, फोन कीजिए, एसटीडी कीजिए, टैक्सी में जाइए, हेलीकॉप्टर में जाइए, आई डोंट माइंड, लेकिन 1 घंटे में, अगले 1 घंटे में वो सारी फाइलें मुझे मेरे हाथ में चाहिए, विद इन एन आवर। अगर किसी
M. Shastri, 2 counters to you. One is that those diseases are not happening every day. They're sometimes happening. Those pandemics are getting created sometimes. I'm not just talking about corona, but all even the smaller pandemics that happen or are born in the slums, they're happening every now and then. How do you know that exactly on the day you created this slum or you reinvented this slum, that public health factor was not going to be prevented? Okay, I'm saying maybe it was not going to happen for another 10 years anyway. And secondly, if people can't afford to live in those in that lavish lifestyle with those fancy houses, they're going to create a slum out of it again, or they'll create a slum elsewhere and give these out to rent.
किसी को पेट में दर्द हुआ, सर में दर्द हुआ और वो टाइम पर नहीं पहुंचा, तो उसके नाम की फाइल मैं खोल दूंगा। एक्सक्यूज मी सर, इन सारी फाइल्स का हम करेंगे क्या? सबको सस्पेंड करेंगे।
So Doge, a bit of Doge.
वाह, पहली बॉल में 6 सर।
This is the best motive of Nayak. Nayak is such a fun movie to watch because of A.R. Rahman's background score even. Well, more public resources is debatable. Like this one slum they talked about, 18,000 crores. Would it have taken 18,000 crores of public resources?
क्या आप भी इन झोपड़पट्टी वालों में धोती, चावल और कंबल बांटने आए हैं?
That would have been
मेरे
better.
हिसाब से देश में झोपड़पट्टी ही नहीं होनी चाहिए।
वाह 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 वाह।
सरकार ने तुम लोगों को मकान बना कर दिया ना? हाँ साहब। तो फिर यहाँ क्यों रह रहे हो? कहाँ जाएं?
Yeah, this is the answer. This is the question, the same question that Anil Kapoor is asking. I'm asking as well. Dada, you are mixing up lack of enforcement as failure of slum rape. What enforcement? The solution to that is to fix enforcement of property rights, not to kill rehab program. Enforcement of what? That guy can't maintain that house, and it's not really a problem of property rights if someone who owns a particular piece of flat and wants to rent it out to someone. So what's the problem with that even? The problem is the incentives that we are giving, and that to a very temporary solution. Property rights of what? He doesn't want that property. He wants to rent it out and wants to encroach somewhere else. Yeah, unless you say that encroaching somewhere else is a property rights violation, yes, but not after the flat has been given to him. So let's see. Anil Kapoor's question here. One side Doge and one side Lenin. Yes. Elon Musk और Stalin एकसाथ है.
बांटने आए हैं? मेरे हिसाब से देश में झोपड़पट्टी ही नहीं होनी चाहिए। सरकार ने तुम लोगों को मकान बना कर दिया ना? हाँ साहब। तो फिर यहाँ क्यों रह रहे हो?
कहाँ जाएंगे साहब, यहाँ नहीं रहेंगे तो। 2000 झोपड़े हैं, 20 मकान दिया है, अभी उसके अंदर कितना ठूसेगा साहब?
इस्लाम बोर्ड का डायरेक्टर कौन है? यहीं पर था ना? अरे या कहाँ चूहे की तरह छुप रहे हो?
सर।
इन सबको कितने मकान अलॉट हुए?
1680 सर।
ये सब क्या बोल रहे हैं? सिर्फ 20 ही मिले? बाकी सब क्या हुए?
वो सर क्या है कि
मिनिस्टर लोगों को दहेज में दिए होंगे, है ना? सर, इन लोगों के लिए जो सरकारी जमीन अलॉट होती है उसमें आधी तो पॉलिटिशियन खा जाते हैं। बाकी की जमीन पर जो मकान बनते हैं उनमें तो 75% पर हाउसिंग बोर्ड वाले और पार्टी के लोग कब्जा कर लेते हैं। कम से कम 20-25 फ्लैट तो इन भाई साहब के पास होंगे, है ना?
उसके बाद अगर कुछ बचता है तो इन लोगों को मिलता है। और ये लोग भी बड़े होशियार लोग हैं सर, जो मकान मिलते हैं उन्हें किराए पे चढ़ाकर एक और नई झुपड़पट्टी बना लेते हैं।
साहब जी, तुकाराम को भी एक मकान मिला था, इसने 2000 किराए पर सरदार जी को दे रखा है। अरे अब नहीं बोलेंगे तो कब बोलेंगे?
जब आप सब जानते हैं आपने एक्शन क्यों नहीं लिया?
सर आप तो जानते हैं मिनिस्टर लोग।
मिनिस्टर की बात छोड़ा, आपने अपना काम क्यों नहीं किया? टाइपराइटर आ गया?
तुम्हारा
नाम क्या है?
सर
श्रीमान वो हम सब लगा लेंगे, तुम सिर्फ अपना नाम बताओ।
श्रीकांत मानिक सर।
इनका सस्पेंशन ऑर्डर टाइप करो।
सर ये क्या कर रहे हैं सर? सर मैं मर जाऊंगा, ऐसा मत कीजिए सर, मुझे माफ कर दीजिए।
अरे भाई वो लोग कहाँ है? हाँ कि एक झटके से one shot actions are not for Hindutva or Hindu society. It's not a part of Sanatan economics model. We should not fire people. So this movie is, I guess, USAID funded and a part of American propaganda. This is Western style capitalism.
रोकिए प्लीज सर, प्लीज रोकिए सर, आप भी कुछ बोलिए सर।
बोलता हूँ, जल्दी टाइप कर।
ये क्या कर रहे हैं सर? मैं बर्बाद हो जाऊंगा।
तुकाराम, तुम्हें मकान कहाँ अलॉट हुआ था?
शास्त्री नगर में साहब।
शास्त्री नगर। तो मेरे साथ चलो।
अच्छा
कमिश्नर सर, ट्रक्स ले आइए और यहाँ जिन जिन लोगों को मकान अलॉट हुए थे उनकी झोपड़ियां खाली करवाइए और शास्त्री नगर ले आइए।
यस सर।
You all can't hear the background score all that much because of StreamYard, I guess.
You are suspended.
Yes, for littering there are two solutions: hardcore penalization and budgets for cleaning. No. That's absolutely the fault of the slum rehab program, because that guy who came up with the slum rehab program forgot the word called incentive. Rishabh, have you seen Nayak? That is actually the conclusion of this entire section. Okay, this Tukaram guy comes and says that किसको अच्छा लगता है सर एक और झोपड़पट्टी में रहने को? तो जैसे अब आपने हमको एक घर दिला दिया, एक नौकरी का भी बंदोबस्त कर दीजिए. दैट इज द एंटायर पॉइंट.
ये बाजू सर, ये वाला घर.
Polymerists, we are not watching a film, we are watching a section of a film because it does some Doge things and Stalinist things at the same time. Not Stalin, socialism.
क्या है जी? इस मकान का मालिक कौन है?
मालिक ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ खड़ा है जी.
आपका नाम?
मेरा नाम तुकाराम. आपका?
तुसी तुकाराम ते असी बिल क्लिंटन है.
राजी, ये एक दिन के चीफ मिनिस्टर हैं इस स्टेट के.
तो आपने पहले क्यों नहीं मुझे बताया? सर आइए अंदर बैठिए.
जी हम अंदर नहीं आएंगे, आप बाहर जाएंगे.
क्यों बाहर जाएंगे जी?
क्योंकि ये
No, you can't prevent that rehab person from leaving. Yes, of course. Where am I saying that prevent that person from leaving? I'm saying don't create the incentives with 18,000 crores of public money where he feels like leaving. That's a perfect situation for him to leave.
ये घर इस तुकाराम को अलॉट हुआ है और आप यहाँ पे गैर कानूनी ठहरे हुए हैं, समझे?
और मैं क्या, हम ऐसे ही थोड़े ठहरे हैं? हम तो भाड़ा देते हैं, ऐसे ही मकान खाली कर देंगे.
अगर आप मकान हवाले नहीं करेंगे तो हवालात में बंद कर देंगे.
हवालात में?
सिर्फ 8 साल के लिए.
যদি সবাই ফিরে যায় ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায় যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না যায় তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না তবে একলা চলো রে যদি আলো না ধরে ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে তবে বজ্রা নলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো